Hello fellow Blenderers, this is Peter here with PM Designs. In this video I'm going to show you some what I call in-camera tricks. This is a really simple principle. Many of you probably know how to do it, but maybe just haven't thought of other things you could do with this. I just thought I'd share some ideas, like how to make one character's shadow appear different, or how to make someone's reflection appear different, or how to make two worlds occupy the same space but only visible through a quote-unquote portal. Let's get into it here. I'm just going to add in, I'm going to make a very quick basic scene just so we can see what's going on. I'm going to call this one floor. I'm going to add in a monkey. Okay, and this is called monkey. And I'm just going to give these a couple of basic colors. Let's do the floor like, I don't know, some kind of beige color. And the monkey can be, I always like the blue monkey, I don't know why. Right, so all of these only work in cycles, unfortunately. Some of these tricks only work in Blender 4 and onwards, so we'll deal with those later. But the first ones I'm going to show you, you can do them in any version of Blender. We need to have a camera, okay, and I'm just going to keep the camera on the camera to view all the time so I can see exactly what's going on. I'm going to add one light so we have something to look at. All right, so now if I switch over to cycles, yeah, and let's rotate my sun a bit so it's a bit more interesting. Yeah, so we can see Suzanne. So the way this works is really easy. Is just in object properties under visibility, you've got the ray visibility here, and basically you can enable or disable what is visible in the camera or otherwise. So if I just disable this monkey from the camera, she's gone. Yeah, she won't render, but the shadow will render. I can always just disable the shadow, or I could enable the monkey but no shadow. Yeah, that's the basic principle of it here, but there's some other things we can do with this. So if I just let's add in a plane. Okay, and just move it in front of Suzanne here. This is going to be our mirror. I'm going to give it a mirror material, which is basically just glossy with zero roughness. Okay, so now we have a mirror. Yeah, if I select Suzanne, go back to the object properties and disable from glossy, she won't appear in the mirror, but her shadow will. So for this is how you could make like a vampire. A vampire would be brushing his teeth. The toothbrush is in the mirror, but the vampire isn't, because vampires don't have reflections. These are just ideas, you know, get your creative juices flowing. Another thing we could do with this, if I add in, let's add a cube, give this basic material, just like red or something. Okay, so now let's make it smaller. If I select my cube and disable that from all rays except for glossy, it only appears in the mirror. And then if I check back on Suzanne, yeah, so she has no reflection, but there's a cube there instead. So if you've ever seen Quantum Leap or something like that, you could have one character looking into the mirror, but they're actually seeing somebody else or something completely different. So that's quite an interesting idea. This black shading happens because of diffuse. So if I select my monkey and disable the diffuse, she's no longer visible there. Yeah, and so what's happening there is a shadow being cast because the cube is intersecting with the monkey. So that's something we need to fix in Blender 4, because we can do light collections and stuff like that. But if I just scale that up, that's not a problem for now. But if you do have two characters occupying the same space, you are going to get that shadow problem, which we can fix with Blender 4. But anyway, there's one idea. You could have the magic mirror, yeah, as I call it. Okay, another thing we can do with this, while we've got this plane here, is if I change it into a transmissive material, so set it to principal BSDF, not transparent, transmissive, yeah, so increase transmission to 100%, index of refraction set to 1, so it's like 0, and set the color to completely white. So now that is essentially invisible, yeah, apart from the shadow. I'm just going to call this trans. This is my transmissive plane. And now if I disable the shadow there and disable the diffuse, just in case, that is essentially invisible. Yeah. And if I just move my cube somewhere over there, I'm guessing. Yep. And enable the cube only in transmission. Then when I line up my transmissive plane, the cube is there, and then he's not. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting effect. This is how we could do a portal looking through to another world. If I take my floor and duplicate it and give that a new color, let's make it green. Yeah. And do the same thing. That's only make the second floor only visible through transmission. Then we're essentially looking through to another world. Yeah, if you use your imagination a bit. Yeah, you could add displace on that and whatever. And make sure that this one, the first floor, is not visible through transmission, and that the monkey is not visible through transmission. So then when we spin around, we're still looking through to the other world, but that's because we need to delete this back face. Let me make sure which one is the back face first. Okay. Yeah, so we need to hide the back face in cycles. If you want to hide the back face, it's very easy. We just add in a transparent BSDF, a mix shader, and then we add a geometry node and find back facing, plug that into the factor, and then transparent BSDF plug in there. Okay, so now that is, the back face is transparent, the front face is our transmissive. Yeah, and if you wanted to make this a bit more interesting, you don't want it just to be a solid square like this. I'm sure you can figure it out, but let's just do a quick version. I'm going to duplicate this mix shader, duplicate this transparent BSDF, plug it in there, add a gradient texture, and set that to object. Set the gradient texture to be spherical, and with a color amp in here, set to constant, I can make my portal, switch those two around, make my portal round like that. And if you wanted to displace it a little bit, just add in a mix, or I'll do it here, mix RGB and a noise texture. Set this down to like 0.1 for now. Plug in the factor of the noise and just increase the scale of the noise, and you get a kind of funky portal going on. Yeah, and we could even add in a color amp here, and we can start to get some like bits which are hanging off the side. So we've got more interesting looking portal as this guy looks it through into another world. Okay, so that's just one effect we could do here. You can do two locations in one location looking through a portal, and you can see the other world. Another thing you could do with this, instead of it being a portal, if you've ever seen Silent Hill or anything like that, you've played the games or seen the movies, like the whole world sometimes changes. So if I scale this thing right up, yeah, you could have it start off very small and then it scales up, or you can move it right out of the way so it's not visible, scale it up, and then as it comes forward, the world is going to change behind it and other things will appear as it comes forward. And just to make it look a bit more interesting, you could always tab into edit mode on that, subdivide it a whole load, yeah, and add a displacement modifier just to make it a bit more bumpy, lumpy, so it's not so perfect. With some clouds, I like clouds. Yeah, so now as that plane, where's it gone? Because I've applied the scale on that, and I'm going to just take away that gradient so we could just see it all completely like that. Yeah. So now as that comes in, it looks a bit more interesting with some deformation going on there. And I'm just going to do one more thing here to show you like a mistake you might come across, a problem you might come across. I'm going to do the same thing with my green plane, subdivide it. Yeah, and then I'm going to give it a displacement modifier. Same thing, just to show you a problem you might come across if I just take this down a little bit. Okay, so now you can see there's all this black area. That is caused by the shadow of the first plane, the beach. Let's call it the beach plane. So, you know, it's your floor. It doesn't need a shadow. Just take that off. Okay, so there you have this cool transition effect here. Yeah, so that's what we can do with transmission. If you have any other ideas for that, please feel free to drop them down in the comments and let others know, because it's quite an interesting one. You could do, you know, world changing, or looking through a small portal into a different world. It doesn't have to be with a plane here. If I add a cylinder around my cube, wherever my cube may be. Where's the cube? Oh, it's over there. Yeah, and give this the same material. Which one was it? Material 2. Okay. Give this cube, this cylinder, the same material. So then as we spin around it, we're looking into another world, which, I don't know, maybe you can find some use for that, but there's an idea. Something interesting you could do with that. And just make sure, obviously, that cylinder doesn't cast a shadow. And that's your alternate universe contained within a cylinder. Okay, so now we'll talk about the one object casting a different shadow. For that one, we need to go into Blender 4. So I've got this basic scene set up here. I've got a cube. I've got like my floor and wall, basically, and my Suzanne. What I want to do is have this cube cast Suzanne's shadow. Yeah, but not its own shadow. So if I just pop into cycles here, we can see everything is as default. So if I did like we did before, by going down to the visibility and disabling the shadow of the cube, that's fine. Now I've only got Suzanne's shadow, and disable everything but her shadow. We're kind of there, yeah, almost got it, but we've got this problem here. Yeah, this is what I want. I want Suzanne's shadow and no shadow from the cube, but where they are intersecting, yeah, it's casting, basically Suzanne's mesh is casting a shadow on the cube. So this is why we need Blender 4, because Blender 4 basically does what Maya can do with the receive no shadows option, but you just need to mess around a bit with light linking. Okay, so I've got 2 lights set up already. Yeah, they're in the same location, because that's kind of the trick, is you want to make it look like one light. Yeah, and so the way light linking works is you can put objects into the collection of light linking and say, I want the light to affect this object, or I want it to not affect this object. So if I just do a quick example, so we select the first light here, come down to shading, and ignore light groups. We're going straight for light linking and create a new collection. If I bring this cube down into the collection here, right, so if I enable it, that means this light, let's disable that second light, this light only affects this cube, and that reflection there is bounce light from the cube. If I disable it, it means the light affects everything but this cube. And the reason the cube is lit is because of the because of the bounce light from this scene. Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to enable the one light to hit everything but Suzanne's shadow. Okay, and then the other light is going to work in the opposite way. So for the first light, I need a light linking group and a shadow linking group. Okay, and I'm going to drag the cube down and Suzanne into both groups. Cube and Suzanne. Okay, I'm going to enable the cube. Yeah, but disable Suzanne's shadow. See, so that's, this light is hiding Suzanne's shadow. So now on my second light, yeah, which is still having the same problem, I'm going to do the same thing, new light linking group, new shadow linking group, drag the cube down, drag Suzanne down, drag the cube down, and drag Suzanne down. But this time I'm going to disable everything except for Suzanne's shadow. So that's that. There we go. Done. Yeah? I know that seems a bit weird. But so now if I parent these two lights together, whichever way around, if I move the light anywhere, yeah, it's not going to show that intersection between the two objects. Yeah, and even if I were to increase the size of Suzanne, so there might be even more intersection, it's not going to happen. There's no intersection going on. Okay, and now I could parent Suzanne to the cube. And now wherever I move the cube, Suzanne will follow, but not be seen. So there you go. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please drop a like. If you didn't, please let me know why, and I'll try to do better next time. And if you have any other ideas for ways to use these effects of like basically camera trickery, please drop it down in the comments and share it with the community. Thanks very much.